So now that we've set up our project and we've built out our first screen with the button and the edit text field and a list of items that to be ready to display, in this video, we're going to look at how to actually put items into our list. So we have just one goal for this video, and that is going to be setting up our recycler view. Just one goal, but it's going to be quite a complicated one. So let's jump into it into Android Studio. So in our last video, we were mostly working with the XML layout file. We added a button, we added an edit text view, and we added a recycle view. And when we ran our app, it looks something like this, where we have a nice little text field down here where the user can click into and start typing some tasks. And there's a button they can click. It doesn't do anything right now. So in this video, what we're actually going to do is actually start building out our list of items so something interesting can start display. So the first thing I want to look at is the main activity.kotlin file. So the Kotlin file, if you remember, is where we're going to handle all the user interactions. So for example, if we actually wanted to know when the user clicked on this add button, how do we do that? All right, so the way that the XML layout file and the Kotlin file are bridged together, right now, what this main activity Kotlin file is doing is it's saying, hey, when I run, I want my layout to be set to whatever is the layout file in activity_main. And that is this layout file, activity_main. So that's how these two classes are connected right now. The main activity Kotlin file and the activity_main XML file is connected with this line right here, where the Kotlin file says set my content view to be the activity_main layout file. So now one thing we're going to start doing is seeing how these two files actually work together. So one thing is, let's detect when the user clicks on the add button. So this is the first thing we're going to do, just to start testing things out to see how things work. So in order to do that, we need to first grab a reference to this button view. So let's go ahead and do that. And the way we do that is by doing something called find view by ID. And I'm going to type some code out. It might not make sense, but I'll explain it after I've typed it all out. So what this line of code doing is it's telling the Kotlin code to find a specific view by its ID, and the view of the ID we're looking for is the ID button. And what that's going to do is it's going to go inside this layout file that's been laid out, activity_main, and then inside this activity_main, this file, it's going to look for a specific view with the ID button. In this case, it's going to be this button ID. And we need to tell it what exact view we're trying to find. And in this case, we are trying to find a button view. And in order to actually detect when the user clicks on something, we need to do something called setOnClickListener. So once we call the setOnClickListener, any code that we write in here is going to be executed whenever the user clicks on the button. So a very helpful thing to do is maybe we could just print out a log message to let ourselves know if the user has clicked on the button. So right now, when I click on this button, nothing is happening. So one thing I want to show you all is this really cool logcat panel. So down here, I'm going to click on logcat. And if I click on logcat, you'll see it brings up all this cool information about what's going on my phone. And I could actually print out my own thing on what I wanted to be displayed here if I write code that says something like log.i, and then I'm going to type some code out. It might not make sense, but I'll explain it a bit later. And whenever you see there's some red in Android Studio, again, that means there's an error. Right here it says there's unresolved reference, and it's asking us to import the specific class before we can use it. So if I hover over it and I click on import, it'll automatically add this import class here. And that way I can start using this log class. So what this specific line is doing is saying, okay, print out a log line here with the tag of whatever you want this tag string to be, and then print out this specific message. So let's see how this actually works, and maybe things will start making more sense. So I'm going to stop my app. I'm going to run it again. I'm going to clear my logcat. I'm actually going to filter these log messages by the tag I have here. So you'll see the tag string I had here was Karen, and I'm going to put that same tag up here so the log messages are filtered so it's not really messy. If I don't filter for log messages, there's a lot of messy log messages that I don't really care about right now. Now, if I click on this add button, you'll see that there's this log message that prints out, which is really useful because now we know our code is actually working here. What we're doing is now we know that we can actually start writing code to make something happen whenever the user clicks on this button. So that's how the XML file and the Kotlin file kind of play together. The XML file is where you lay out all these different views, and the Kotlin file is where you handle these different types of user interaction and put in all your logic. Alright, so this was just a demonstration, so I'm going to comment this out for now. But one thing we do want to start working with is how we're going to actually display a list of item up here. So let's go ahead and start doing that. So if you go back to the instructions on what we should be doing for our pre-work app, and you scroll down a bit to the specific section on rendering a list of items, there's a link to a guide called Using the Recycler View. So you want to go ahead and open this guide, because this guide is what we're going to be following in order to build out how we're going to display our list of items for our ToDo app. There's a whole overview on how recycler views work, and I recommend you actually reading through at least the overview and a little bit about how to actually use a recycler view before following these next steps in the video, so that you get a better understanding before you actually see how it's implemented. So we're going to literally follow this guide step by step in order to render a list of items inside our app. So the first thing we need to do is define a model. Right now we don't need to define a model, because what a model is supposed to do is the model is going to represent every single item inside the recycler view. Right now, every single item inside our recycler view is just going to be a string, so we don't quite need to do this part of defining a model. But we could start by going inside our main activity and defining a variable that will hold our list of tasks. So let's call this list of tasks, and let's make this a mutable list of strings. This will allow us to basically store our list of tasks inside this variable. And down in our onCreate method here, we could start adding tasks. List of tasks. As you can imagine, we probably don't want to actually add tasks inside our code. What we want is to let the user add these tasks inside our app and then add it to our variable here. But for now, let's not worry about that, because we're going to be doing that in the next video where we actually let the user add tasks. But this is just an example of what our model for this specific recycler view is going to be. It's just going to be strings, so we can skip this part about defining a model. Next, we need to actually create the recycler view within the layout, and lucky for us, we have already done this. If you go back to Android Studio and you look at your XML file, we've already added our recycler view layout here. So we've got this part down already. Good for us. One thing we could do is actually add an ID for this recycler view that we can reference later inside our Kotlin file. Because as you remember, if we don't have a specific ID, we're not going to be able to reference it inside the Kotlin file. So let's add an ID for this recycler view. All right, going back to the guide, let's see what's actually next. Next, we actually need to create a custom row layout. So this is how we want each specific item inside our recycler view to be laid out. And for now, I think we don't quite need this specific row layout, because each item inside our recycler view is just going to display a string. So we don't quite need this for now. But what we do need is we need to actually start creating this adapter. So the adapter is what's going to take the information and render that information into our recycler view. So let's follow this exact guide to start creating our adapter. All right, so the first thing we want to do is let's go inside Android Studio and actually create the adapter class. So I'm going to right click on my simple to do package. I'm going to click on new, and then I'm going to go for the Kotlin class. So I'm going to create a new Kotlin class. I'm going to call this the task item adapter. And what this class is going to do is it's going to be the bridge that tells the recycler view exactly how to lay out the information we give it. So an easy way to think of the adapter class is we can think of this adapter class as being a bridge that tells the recycler view how to display the data we give it. And the data we give it is going to be the list of strings that we have defined here. So the list of tasks here is defined as a list of strings right now. And what this adapter is going to be doing is going to take this list of strings and then be able to actually render that list of strings inside the recycler view item by item. And we're going to take a look at how that works. So the first thing we want to do for the task adapter is we want to actually extend the recycler view adapter class. So we'll go back to the guide and we look at the Kotlin version of the guide. The first thing for creating the recycler view adapter is it says we need to actually extend this recycler view adapter class. So let's go ahead and copy and paste this. Go inside Android Studio. We need to import the recycler view class, and then instead of context adapter, our class is called the task item adapter. So let's go ahead and change that. Right now we don't have a view holder class, but let's go ahead and make a view holder class for ourselves and fill it out later. So I'm going to copy this, just the first line of this, and I'm going to go here and I'm going to create my view holder class just to get rid of that error. So all I did was created, basically copy and pasted this line of code to create my view holder class, and we're going to have to actually fill out stuff in here later. So I'm going to add a to-do. The other thing you'll notice right now is now Android Studio is complaining about this task item adapter class, and it's saying we extended this adapter recycler view adapter class, but there are certain methods we haven't implemented or overridden. So an easy way to fix this is to click on implement members, highlight all the methods that we're supposed to override, and then click on OK. And then you'll see now we get these 3 different methods that we need to override. And that's what we're going to be working on, actually filling out these different methods. I'm going to move the view holder class down here a little bit, and we're going to work on that one last. So let's go back to the guide and see what we should do now. And you might be wondering what each of these specific methods are doing, and we're going to go over them one by one. All right, so if we go back down here, the first thing that it says we need to do is we need to actually give our adapter the data that it needs to display, right? So in this case, it was created in contacts adapter and it was passed in a list of contacts. Well, for us, we're going to be passing in a list of items, and the list of items is going to be represented as strings. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and give our adapter constructor a list of items. So inside our adapter, I'm going to make this a constructor, and I'm going to give it a list of items. List of items. So this is going to be our list of items. And now that we have this list of items that tells the adapter exactly what we need to display, we could also implement this get item count. Get item count is just going to be the size of our list of items. So get item count is basically just supposed to return how many elements this recycle view should be expected to actually lay out. All right, going back to the next step, now we need to actually implement these different methods inside our adapter. So the first one we need to implement is onCreateViewHolder. So onCreateViewHolder, you'll see the message or the comment that's here that says this usually involves inflating a layout for MXML and returning the holder. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to actually copy over the comment so I know what my code is going to be doing. So onCreateViewHolder is the method that we're supposed to inflate the layout from XML and return the holder. So I'm going to copy some of this, and then I'm going to explain line by line what it does first. So onCreateViewHolder is supposed to tell the recycler view how to lay out each specific item inside the recycler view. So for example, if we scroll up here, we'll see that each item has a specific way it needs to be laid out, right? Each item here in this example has some text on the right and some button on the some text on the left and some button on the right. How does the recycler view know how to lay out each of these specific items? Well, that's through this onCreateViewHolder. onCreateViewHolder needs to inflate a specific layout for each item. And you'll remember that back when we were starting out to build this recycler view, we didn't go through the process of creating this custom row layout because we didn't have a very complicated layout to use. We could actually use a default custom row layout that Android has provided for us. So instead of the layout item underscore contact, which doesn't exist in our project, we're going to use something called Android R layout simple list item. So this list item, you could even open it up by doing command believe it's Command B. Yeah, by clicking on Command B, you can see what this list item looks like. And this is just a default template list item layout that's provided for us. And if we go look at the code, all it has is a text view, which is perfect for us because each item inside our to-do app just has a text. So this is what our onCreate view holder looks like. We basically have to get some context first and then use it to get a layout inflator. The layout inflator is then what we're going to use to actually inflate this layout that we're going to use for each item inside the recycler view. And then we need to actually return the view holder, which we haven't actually implemented yet. All right, so why don't we actually go ahead and implement our view holder now so that we can use our implementation to then build off of implementing onBind view holder. So what this view holder class is supposed to do is we're basically just going to grab references to the views we need so that we could populate data into those views. And that might not make any sense for now, but inside this view holder, the only thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the layout we're going to use, and then we're going to grab a references text view so that in onBind view holder, we can then use that reference to the text view to then tell this text view what text to display. And the text it's going to display is going to be whatever the string of our task item inside our to-do app is going to be. So this view holder is going to store references to our views. Store references to elements in our layout view. And since our layout only has this one text view, this is the only thing we're going to need to grab a reference to. So let's go ahead and do that. And the way we're going to do that is by creating a variable for our text view. And we're going to initialize this variable inside our init block. Oops. So inside this init block, we're going to set text view equal to, and the way we get a reference to any view inside a layout is using findViewById. And the ID of the view we're looking for here. Oh, so before we do findViewById, we actually have to use item view to findViewById. And then the ID of the view we're looking for here is Android text1. So it's going to look like Android. And this is going to, don't think we need those brackets. So this is what it looks like here. And I believe the only complaint here is that we can make this private. So it could look something cool like this. Actually, I think we do need the init block. So I'm going to keep this here like this for now and not listen to Android Studio. And then maybe we can test it later to see if we can actually join the declaration of this variable. But this is all our view holder is going to need. We're going to need to declare the text view. And then we need to, once we declare the text view variable, we need to actually set it in our init block by using findViewById. All right, so now that we have our view holder, we can go on to implementing our onBind view holder. So if we go back to our guide and we look at what onBind view holder is doing here, the comment for onBind view holder says that it involves populating data into the item through the holder. So let's go ahead. Oh, we already have that copied here. So what this means is onBind view holder is going to take whatever is in this list of items and use that to populate what's inside, to populate the layout inside view holder. So let's go ahead and copy this just so we have a good reference of what it's doing. And I'm going to copy and paste this here. And then I'm going to comment it out just so I can have a good reference for what it's actually doing. So the first thing we need to do is get the data model based on the position. And our data model based on the position, you'll remember our list of items is basically our data models. So we need to get the specific item inside our list of items that we care about. And the way we do that is by saying list of items dot get in the position. And we don't even need the string. There we go. So this is just getting the specific item that we care about in the specific recycler view. Next, we need to actually set the text view to be whatever the text for this specific task is. So in order to do that, we need to say text view dot text. Oops. View holder .textView.text, and we're going to set that equal to item. And that's, I think, all we need in onBindViewHolder, since all we're doing is we're getting the item inside our list of items, the specific one we care about, and then setting the text view to whatever the string item is. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all this now that I finished working with it and I understand what's going on in onBindViewHolder. And that's really it to all that takes to set up our adapter class. Now the next thing we need to do is actually use this adapter class, because we haven't done anything inside our main activity. So far we've created a fake list of items, and next let's actually hook up everything inside our main activity to see this fake list of items that we built. So if we go back to our guide, and then we go to the section that says binding the adapter to the recycler view, and go into the Kotlin tab. First, we need to look up the recycler view in the layout. So let's actually look up the recycler view in the layout, and the way we do that is I'm going to copy this line and then I'm going to change it up a bit. So the first thing we need to do is we need to look up the recycler view in the layout. And the way we look up specific views is by find view by ID. So this is going to be a recycler view, and the ID of our recycler view, if we go back to our activity underscore main, the ID of our recycler view is just recycler view. So first we looked up the recycler view in the layout and we grabbed a reference to it. Going back to the guide, the next thing is we need to actually initialize our contacts and then create an adapter that passes in the contacts. So let's go ahead and do that. So our adapter is called task item adapter, and instead of this contacts, we're going to pass it in a list of tasks. And now we have our adapter and we passed it in our list of tasks that we want it to display in the recycler view. Next thing we need to do is actually attach the adapter to the recycler view. So let's go ahead and do that. So right now the recycler view is its own thing and the adapter is its own thing. They don't know anything about each other until we add this line of code. That attaches the adapter to the recycler view. So our recycler view is called this. So without this line of code, the recycler view and the adapter would know nothing about each other. So we need to make sure the recycler view and the adapter are connected with this line of code here. And the last thing we need to do is set a layout manager. So what the layout manager does is it tells this recycler view how to set up itself. And there's different types of layout managers. And you can imagine there's different types of recycler views that might be horizontal or vertical or even something like half a circle. So we're just going to use a simple linear layout manager in this case. So let's go ahead and do that. And our recycler view is not called RV contacts, it's called recycler view. And we're going to have to import the linear layout manager. And that should be it. And so now when I launch my app, what I expect to see is I expect to see at least these two items inside my recycler view up here. So let's go ahead and try that. If everything is set up correctly, we should be able to see our app exactly the same, but with these two items inside our list. And great, now we can see that there's these two items inside our list that we've added inside our code here. And our recycler view seems to be working great. Our edit text field still works, and we still have our button here. So it was cool that we set up our recycler view and everything is working properly, but now, the next video, we're actually going to find out how we can let the user type some kind of task here, click the add button, and then be able to see that task added to the list of items down here, and then they're going to be able to long click on a specific item to remove it from this list. So that's what we're going to be working on in the next video, but hopefully by the end of this video, you already have your recycler view set up and you can see a pre-made list of tasks that was done in code.